Coming up on today's show,
Wednesdays are for the players, baby.
Calais Campbell joins the show to tell us why his former teammate Patrick Peterson is a better quarterback than Blake Bortles. His words, not mine.
Tama headlines, Eric Mangini, and this week's catchphrase marks the beginning and end of Joe's broadcasting career.
All of this and much, much more coming up on another Malcolm Gladwell award-winning episode of the ThomaJohnnyHawk Show.
Woo! All right, so disclaimer, we had some technical issues. Joe's audio went out. We felt like we lost a good portion of the episode, but luckily, the task force here at the ThomaHawk Show saved the audio. So it might sound a little off, but just like a slice of bread on a hot dog, it won't be perfect, but it'll get the job done. Welcome to the ThomaHawk Show. I'm your humblest of co-hosts, Andrew Hawkins, joined as always by my main man, Joseph Hayden Thomas. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
Doing great, man. It's a super busy week for me. I feel like it's game week. I feel like I'm back in the NFL. We talked last episode how I'm doing the Bucs-Texans game on Saturday with Rich Eisen and Nate Burleson. And let me tell you, there's a lot more prep work that goes into calling a game than there is being a 90-minute Yahoo on the pregame show with Michael Irvin and Steve Smith and just saying whatever the hell we want and the ThomaHawk catchphrase game. That's much simpler. This is real work. And
yeah,
so
man.
I've been crunching the numbers all week, talking to all sorts of former players that know the Texans and that know the Bucs, both on those teams and guys that have recently played against them, and obviously watching a lot of film. So it's definitely been a busy week, but it's been fun. You know, you kind of get that little bit of excitement, that energy that you got when you were playing and preparing for a game. So it's been a lot of fun.
Are you going to be the fun version of Joe Thomas? Are you going to be like, you know, the boring, I have like my pants are way too tight version and I'm scared because I just want to fit in? Or are we going to get the ThomaHawk version of Joe Thomas?
So what you're saying is there's a boring, my pants are too tight version of myself?
There is. There is. Like when you're kissing the babies and shaking the hands at Cleveland Brown Stadium, like that's the version of Joe Thomas that I would expect to be on a nationally color commentated game. But I want the ThomaHawk Live Cleveland, Ohio 100th episode celebration version.
For sure, obviously, if it was you and I on there, we would know that it would be TV gold. With Nate Burleson, I think that's probably the closest thing to Hawk. They actually asked for Hawk, but he was busy that day. And so they said, what's the closest thing to Hawk? All right, it's another short black receiver that had a mediocre playing career, but had a meteoric media career.
Kevin Hart. But Kevin Hart is also not available. So we'll go with Nate Burleson.
So it's perfect. So actually, it should be a lot of fun, and I'm definitely going to be the guy that doesn't know what he's doing. And so when I don't know what I'm doing, I always defer to humor and making fun of myself and everyone else that's within earshot. So hopefully Rich and Nate are ready because they're going to get it on Saturday.
I also like that you called Nate Burleson short and he's 6'1". But I guess when you're 6'7", everybody that's underneath you is considered short.
Yeah. So Calvin Johnson was the guy drafted ahead of me in 2007.
Who's this?
He is the only receiver that's adequate size, and he was 6'6". So anything less than that is considered a short receiver in my book.
All right, so you can check Joe out on Saturday, man. Texans versus the Bucs. Jameis Winston will probably throw 5 interceptions, but he'll match it. He'll make up for it by throwing 5 picks. So this did half your job for you there, Joe.
Hey, thank you.
Follow us on social media at ThomaHawk Show on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram. Join our Facebook group, ThomaFlock. Hit our voicemail lineup, 440-628-1376. All right, let's get into some Thoma headlines.
This is a special report from
Thoma headlines.
All right, we're just going to talk some headlines this week, man. It's playoff time. So, yeah, we're looking for who's getting the wild card spots and who's taking the lead in divisions, especially when your division is shitty like the NFC East, and the winner probably won't even have a winning record, but he'll go to the playoffs. You know, but we're going to talk about some of the other things, man. Drew Brees. Did you watch the Monday Night Football game this week, Joe?
I did, and it was an absolute shellacking.
Oh, my gosh.
It was embarrassing. But Drew Brees did set a record. So
he was amazing, right? And then, like, it's weird to think, for as incredible as Drew Brees is and what his career has become and his stats, and obviously that all speaks for itself. It was crazy for me watching it because for some reason, I still had this feeling of like, oh man, he cemented himself as a great quarterback tonight. And I'm like, what the hell are you thinking? Like, he just broke the all-time touchdown pass record. He already owns it in yards. I don't know, man. It was just a marvel to watch a guy who's 77 years old go 29 for 30 in passing. And in a game where he was trying to break another record, he broke like 3 other records. You know what I'm saying?
29 of 30, that's a game that's reminiscent of, remember when Aaron Rodgers went into Atlanta in the playoffs? This would have been 10 or 12 years ago, and he was like 31 out of 32 for like 350 or something. Yeah. It was like one of the greatest performances of all time. And Drew Brees, 29 out of 34 touchdowns. Here's something I don't understand. Drew Brees last night, 29 out of 30, 307, 4 touchdowns, no picks, no sacks. How is his QBR 97? How did they get to that number? Like, what could he have done to be better last night? You could say, well, one pass, but realistically, how did he not have an astronaut? I don't know how the QBR works.
It's different than
if it's out of
a QB
100
rating. Yeah.
But he should have been 100. He should have, at the minimum, been a 99. How do you get a 97?
Maybe.
Makes no sense.
I don't. Yeah, that is a good question, and I don't know enough to give you a good answer.
Yeah. Well, but either way, my 2 favorite things from last night is I feel like there's this secret rivalry between Taysom Hill and Drew Brees. Do you get that sense?
Because you know, kind of like the rivalry between the New England Patriots and the
Cleveland Browns,
the Toledo Rockets.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you mean the kind of rivalry that we're neither of them on the same playing field, and
because
there's clearly one winner.
Do we see Taysom Hill get put in the game near the goal line, and he's got a special play, and he gets to score a touchdown, and he gets to celebrate? But Drew Brees did all the work moving him down the field.
And you think there's a rivalry? You think something's
brewing? I feel
brewing?
like Drew secretly hates him that he gets to come into the game and get his touchdowns, and then he's thinking, you know what? I would have set this record weeks ago had it not been for you, Taysom, always coming in and stealing my easy touchdowns. Who's he trying to kiss? Because he's always over in the sidelines. You ever notice him? He like purses his lips like he's trying to kiss somebody at all the time. And a lot of times they'll show him, especially when he's nervous. That's like his nervous tick.
Kiss people?
I'm always looking at him just like,
interesting.
Who's he trying to kiss out there? So next time you watch the Saints, make sure you check out Sean Payton and see how he purses his lips nervously repeatedly. And it really, for some reason, it's the small things in life, Hawk.
He's going to get written up by HR for that. Michael Thomas, another aspect of this game that marveled me. 12 targets, 12 catches. That's just an amazing stat in and of itself.
He's good.
Yeah, he went 12 for 12. Very rare do receivers go 12 for 12. Like, because there's so many other factors for him to like be able to catch every ball that gets thrown his way. I went 5 for 5 one time in Atlanta, and I thought I was like,
at a party.
Every time they throw it to me, baby, it is money. And he doubled that +2.
What makes Michael Thomas so good? I mean, he catches the football.
Yeah,
that's got to be number 1. What's number 2?
Number 2, I don't know, man. He is special, and I don't want to say I downplayed the fact that how well he catches the football, because to be honest, he doesn't separate as good as some of the other top tier receivers, right? Like, he's not a super
He was a second
burner.
round pick, so he didn't have all the qualities you're looking for as a receiver coming out. He's not like a super fast guy. He's not like super explosive out of his breaks. He doesn't separate, but obviously having Drew Brees helps. He catches everything.
Yeah,
he's been. I mean, he might set the all-time record for catches in a season this year. I think Marvin Harrison, I think, has it.
Right, Marvin has it. I think he's on pace to get it, though.
But he's on pace to get it, so he's having tremendous career, tremendous season. And I'm just curious, as a receiver, what you think makes him so special.
Well, I used to say it, and it does help. He has Drew Brees. They're like the rare combination of players that bode perfectly for each other, because Drew Brees is the most accurate quarterback probably in the history of the game, and Michael Thomas has an incredible catch radius, right? So if he's not separating, well, at least he wasn't as early in his career as some of those top tier guys like the Julios or the Antonio Browns who made a living off of separation. When you have an accurate quarterback, you know, you're going to benefit from that. But I changed that perspective seeing him play with Teddy Bridgewater, who's also accurate, but he's not Drew Brees. And still you see Michael Thomas put the team on his back, man. And so I just think he's a crazy competitor. He wants to be the best. He wants to be known as the top receiver in the game. And he has that chip on his shoulder, so much so that I know people around him that are like, yo, he's a it sucks being around him because of that chip, but it's what makes him so good. Like, all he cares about is being the best and dominating. Like, so in games where he's whooping the corner's ass in the fourth quarter, he's still telling the corner how bad he sucks. It's not like, oh, man, good game, and, you fought hard, and no, it's like, you're trash, and when I see you next game, I'm going to double it up. I'm going to tell them to throw me twice as much because you couldn't stop me 12 for 12, so imagine if they threw it to me 24 times. I'm going to embarrass you next. And then, like, that's why he gets into so many rifts and fights.
So you're saying that desire is important to be a good football player?
Yeah, man.
Let me write that down.
Write it down.
There's a few players that I've played with over the years that could really use that note.
Yeah, and some scouting departments. That actually might work for hiring head coaches too.
It was funny when Mangini was the head coach of the Browns. He made us memorize all these stupid phrases and stupid catchphrases and stuff. And I still remember it to this day because he used to make us stand up in front of our peers during team meetings and recite all this stuff like it was some type of weird cult. And I hated him for it. But now that I'm in media, and
you do realize you just indirectly berated the ThomaHawk catchphrase game. Like, he would make us memorize all these stupid phrases and re-say them, and only idiots do that.
But it was not like an astronaut eating a tomahawk. The stakes have never been higher. It was focus, finish, trust, communicate. Yes, sir. Every battle is won before it is ever fought, sir. Durability is more important than ability, sir. I mean, it was literally like entering into a cult. Like, he would be like, Andrew Hawkins, what's the quote on the scoreboard? And then you'd have to rattle off like some random quote. What's the quote in the training room? The one in the training room was, durability is more important than ability.
Get the hell out of the training room, essentially.
And it was all in certain like strategic positions.
Backwards messaging.
It was very cultish. And
he also sounds like Russell Wilson when you do his voice. And those are the same things that Russell says in Mic'd Up.
I actually have a tremendous Eric Mangini impersonation where he sounds like the Penguin. You remember, because we talked about it before, how he sounds like he has a big chew in at all times, because he did. And he didn't talk very loudly, which is actually something I actually, now in hindsight, I learned a lot from Eric about life, about coaching, about the game of football. Like, he was extremely smart. And one thing that I learned from him is that the coaches that yell the most usually know the least. Mm-hmm. And when you talk quietly, you make people listen more intently. And that was actually something that was reinforced to me when the Navy SEALs came in and trained us. And one of the guys that I was having lunch with told me, he goes, yeah, I've been like a Navy SEAL trainer for like 7 years or something like that. And he's like, I never yelled at my guys because they knew that when I said something, they had to listen. And if they didn't do it, the punishment was really severe. And so I would just talk really quietly, because he found that when you yell, then the guys don't have to listen as closely and they don't have to focus as much on what you say. So Eric would stand up in front of the team meeting with 100 people in there, and he would talk very quietly. Hey, Andrew, what's the quote on the scoreboard? What's the 4 things that are written on the field? And on the field, there would be in letters that were like 20 yards long. It'd be like communication, trust, focus, finish. And it was written in paint on the practice field. So when you're watching film of practice, it was subliminally reinforced into you like the 4 characteristics that they wanted every Cleveland Brown to have. And the reason we got into this rabbit hole was because there was qualities that they wanted for every football player in the room. And if I can remember quickly off the top of my head, one of the things was football is important. That was actually the last thing. They wanted smart, tough, competitive people. And the last thing was they wanted that football was important. Yeah, and it all makes sense. I mean, they're all really on top of it things, but at the time I didn't appreciate it because I just couldn't stand
Eric Mangini
standing up there. I couldn't stand standing up in front of the team when we're preparing to play the Patriots and rattling off quotes that are on the scoreboard rather than talking about how I'm going to fucking block Chandler Jones out there today. That's my problem. My problem is not the goddamn quote on the scoreboard. My problem is how I'm going to block this asshole who's got 16 sacks this week.
Right, exactly. Well,
so maybe it was a lack of perspective on his part. He wasn't training
maybe future if you understood
media and coaches. He was training football players to try to win a fucking game.
And here you are rattling them all off the top of your brain without flaw. All right, so the Drew Brees, to put a bow on that, what quarterback do you think is going to break Drew Brees' record? And do you think Tom Brady catches him before he retires? Well, I guess not, because you think he's going to retire in 2 weeks.
So Tom Brady will be retiring at the end of the season. Drew Brees,
write that down,
presumably will be playing
for 20 more years.
I think 2 more years. I believe Drew will play till he's 42. He looks very good, unlike where Tom is right now, who seems to be father time kind of catching up to him a little bit. But I think some of that is overblown because his weapons around him and his offensive line and his running game is not what it has been in years past. But
although
I do
it's
think
the same guys, with the exception of Gronk. But go ahead.
They're missing both their offensive tackles, which has been critical. They're missing Gronk, who was their biggest weapon. He was the only guy in the middle of the field. They're missing any sort of deep threat. Not that Josh Gordon was really a deep threat for a long time, but they have no deep threat. They have nobody in the middle of the field where Gronk was. And so all the focus is on the underneath 5-yard routes that Edelman catches. And since they can't protect, they can't even throw the ball down the field because they don't have the same tackles that they had in years past. And their running game stinks because their offensive line has always relied on the fact that everyone was afraid of Brady throwing the football down the field, and they were going to give them the run game, but now they're not worried about Brady throwing it down the field, so they can focus their defense on the run game. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Well, we can book all of that shit. What young
so anyway,
QB?
So Drew, back to Drew.
No, Drew. We wrapped that up. Drew's the man. He's going to play 2 more years. What young QB is going to break his record now?
That's exactly what I was going to get to. So because the game of football is changing before our very eyes, thanks to the young quarterbacks that are dual threat guys, the guys like Deshaun Watson who can run and pass, the guys like Lamar Jackson who are more even run first. And the way that we're seeing the ability to have a dual threat quarterback that can run pass, do the run pass option, do the zone read, and be such a dynamic threat with the football in their hands running, I don't think you're going to see guys like Drew Brees and Tom Brady anymore in the NFL. You're just not. You're going to only see quarterbacks that are athletes. So running is going to be much more balanced into the offense than the New Orleans offense, which we see, which is primarily a passing offense. And so I just don't think that we're going to see the meteoric passing numbers anymore after this generation of old and immobile quarterbacks goes off to pasture.
Yeah. It's like Dutch Clark. It's back to the good old days. Back to like the 1930s when quarterbacks couldn't throw it past 10 yards, but they can also run the football. Yeah. All right. So you don't think their records are going to be broken, even though Patrick Mahomes is probably the best young arm talent we've ever seen in the league.
Yeah, I just think because even Patrick, he's a very mobile quarterback, and because as a mobile quarterback, it means you do take some more hits. I just don't think the longevity of their careers is going to be like we see with Drew and Tom. And the fact that he is a little bit mobile, he is going to focus a little bit more on running, maybe until he gets a little bit older. But what we're seeing right now is just still incredible. And I think because we've been in this era of passing, we've kind of taken it for granted how sharp and incredible and dynamic these offenses are, and their ability to throw the football all over the field was incomprehensible even 10 or 15 years ago. When you look at, as I was getting ready for the Bucs game, Jameis Winston, I think, just passed 4,000 yards passing on the season, and he's done it like every year. But if you go back like 10 or 15 years, there was maybe 1 or 2 guys in the league that would have 4,000 yards passing. And if they had that, they were MVPs of the league. And so this era we're in right now is just so incredible when it comes to the passing game.
All right. I won't argue it.
Today's show is sponsored by The Athletic, a subscription-based sports news site for real fans. Through in-depth coverage from local writers on every team, plus national writers you already know like Jay Glazer, Mike Sando, and Mike Lombardi.
The Athletic is setting a new standard for sports news. There are no ads, pop-ups, or clickbait. Just great sports writing that tells the story behind the story. Get exclusive player profiles, deep dives on analytics, team power rankings, and fantasy sports insights that you won't find anywhere else.
We know you can get a lot of sports content for free, but The Athletic is worth the money. Each subscriber gets a personalized feed of stories, live writer Q&As, podcasts, and more. Just download The Athletic app, pick your favorite teams, and The Athletic will bring you all the latest storylines and the players that matter to you.
Let's face it, you're probably already spending a ton of money on other people for the holidays. So why not get something for yourself? Ready to get started? Well, get 40% off a yearly subscription to The Athletic if you go to theathletic.com/tomahawk. Theathletic.com/tomahawk. All right, next up, we got our guy, Josh Gordon, man. He got suspended indefinitely for violating the NFL drug policy. It was his 5th suspension for some sort of substance abuse. I don't really know. I don't think the report has come out, and then as well as a PED, which that was interesting to me. And I have zero information, but for obvious reasons, we're connected to this because he's our former teammate. I was just curious of what like your thought was when you seen the news.
Well, my first thought was he probably was taking Adderall in season, which they consider a PED.
PED in season.
Right, which is a party drug for a lot of people. You know, they call it poor man's cocaine because it's it's a stimulant that's just like all your other stimulants that are in the street drug categories. And during the season when the NFL tests for that, if it happens and you do test positive, it becomes a PED because some guys use it to have more energy during games and stuff, or they used to. Back in like the 90s, it was legal. The teams used to supply this stuff. They used to call them greenies. I remember we had a strength coach in Cleveland. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know this. Like we had a strength coach in Cleveland who said when he was around in the 90s at the organization he was at, I won't mention who or where, but he said that they used to have a bowl of greenies in the locker room, which was like speed or Adderall or whatever like that type of drug was. It was like a candy bowl. And they were like green mints in the locker room, and everyone would go over and take however many you wanted for practice and games. And that was how you got up. Like that was instead of drinking Spark, which is like one of the energy drinks that everybody drinks, or Monster, or all these other caffeine and vitamin infused energy substances that everybody uses to get energy for the games. It used to be real pharmaceutical drugs back in the day. And in baseball, they had a even way bigger problem with it because guys were taking them every single day to stay focused and to stay sharp for baseball games. But we've learned that they're bad for you. They're bad for your heart. It's not good to be addicted to stimulants. Who would have thought?
Wow.
And so now the NFL tests for it. In the offseason, if you test positive, it becomes substances of abuse, which is under a different penalty structure where you're allowed like 2 or 3 of those before you actually get suspended. Like the first time you test positive for any of the street drugs like marijuana, cocaine, Adderall, whatever, heroin, you would go into a...
Pretty good rattling us off, Joe.
Well, you know, the basics, the big 5. It's like the power 5. But those are things that get you put into like their counseling and internal discipline program, essentially. And if it happens a couple more times, they treat it like an addiction. Whereas if you're taking any type of like steroid substance anytime during the year, it's an automatic 4-game suspension for the first time. So for Josh, this is going to be really tough to come back from this one since it was performance enhancing and an additional substance of abuse, which has been his 5th suspension, and whoever knows how many times he's tested positive. So unfortunately for Josh, this will be really tough to ever step foot in the NFL again. And
everybody, you know, and I know it's easy for fans and people to like, oh, he's an idiot, he's this, he does like, and you know, he's an addict. You know what I mean? And as someone personally affected by addiction, or family members affected by addiction, and in this day and age, I feel like a lot of people, you know, have people that are connected to that and have dealt with that. You know, I've said it from the beginning. My thing for Josh is, yes, I want to see him play football because he's so talented and he has so much talent that, 99.9% of even football players who play in the league are not blessed with, you know, but more for his life. You know what I'm saying? Because addiction is very real. That is not a disease that quickly goes away. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much opportunity is in front of you. If you think about it, he is still on his rookie contract. He has been in the National Football League since, I believe, 2012. And he is still on his rookie year, and we are heading into 2020 in days here. And it's because of this addiction. So I get where everyone's like, yeah, same old, or yeah, if he was this, we could have had this with our team. You know, those are things that I'm sure he wishes did happen. But to be honest, it is outside of his control. And the only real way to get a handle on that is help. And he's gone, and he's tried to go to rehab. He's gone to rehab multiple times, and even since as long as 3 months. And, you know, if he was listening, my advice would be to keep doing that. I'm actually going to try to reach out to him because, again, my thing is never about football. Love to see him do well just as a person in his life, but it's more about life because these things don't get easier as life goes on and when hard things happen and you're bouncing around country to country and, you know, It's a very weird predicament. Even watching the comments on social media, it's just like, yeah, I don't think people realize that there's actual people under the helmet sometimes.
The scary thing for me, Hawk, is knowing people in my life that have had addiction problems is this will not be a wake-up call if he gets booted out of the league. It's not going to be a wake-up call because the one thing that potentially was keeping him straight and narrow, if you can call what was going on straight and narrow, with a few off the wagons that got him suspended, was football, though. And if you take that away from him and you take away that carrot, you can easily see that somebody would feel like they've got no reason to try to keep fighting the demons, and they'll just succumb to the addiction even further. And as we know, there's not a lot of happy endings when you have addiction. And significant lifetime addiction problems like Josh has had, and he's talked about since he was even before high school. And so you do pray and hope that some person somewhere can help get into his life and be by his side if he's ever not able to play back in the NFL, and be a person that he can lean on.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's even weird now thinking about, Josh has missed a lot of time in football, and he's admitted to doing, a lot of different substances across that Power 5 spectrum that you named. But the majority of his suspensions come from marijuana. And it's even weird now. Let's say Josh just got popped for marijuana, right? And it was just like, oh, he smoked weed again and he's suspended. It's even weird now, like watching the way the world is changing and the way people are thinking about that. It would be weird for us to hear now that he couldn't play because of marijuana. You know what I'm saying? Like, I live in Los Angeles. Joe, this stuff is like cigarettes here. You know what I mean? Like, there are kids that go out for smoke breaks in high school, and that is perfectly legal where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just weird to even,
Well, certainly the perception about weed and cannabis has changed significantly, even since I've been in the NFL,
Right.
And we're right on the edge of not testing for it in the NFL. I think the NFL is holding out at this point to try to win something in the collective bargaining agreement.
Give us 3 games and we won't let you.
Yeah, hey, you want something to change? Give us money. Put the money in the bag. The NFL just has a gun to the player's head with everything. It's like, oh, you guys don't want to slam helmets and smash your brains into each other as much in the offseason? Okay, give us money. We don't care. Right. Oh, you don't want to do 2 days that destroy your body and your mind and cause you to die an early death? Okay, give us some money.
We'll take some rep share for that.
Yeah, like, oh, we'll do the right thing. We'll give us some money because the contract we have says we don't have to do that. And so it's the same thing with cannabis right now. Like, the large majority of NFL cities, either from a medical or a recreational standpoint, completely legalized cannabis.
Right.
And the fact that the NFL still tests for it is crazy.
Right.
I mean, MLB and basketball, if I'm not mistaken, don't test for it anymore.
I think MLB just made the announcement that's
when they just made the announcement. So can you imagine if a sports league, if you just close your eyes and all of a sudden there's a sports league that, all right, we're going to test for alcohol. Like, if we catch you drinking beer, we're going to suspend you for 4 games or 6 games or whatever it is. But it's legal. Like, I'm an American citizen. It's totally legal where I am. Like, what I do away from work should be my own business.
Right. Or at work in the case of Marcus Peters.
Wait, what?
He jumped after the win. He jumped in the stands and drank a beer with his uniform.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant like he was smoking a J or something with some fans in the locker room. I'm like, oh, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that report. I know it's California, but I'm still thinking they probably frown upon that. But hey, after the Raiders game, that might have been happening in the locker room, being that it was the last Raiders game, but it was probably the Jaguars locker room. The very first time in my career where I was sitting on the bench and I felt like I was getting high was actually in Oakland, believe it or not. We played in the Black Hole. It was like my 2nd or 3rd year in the NFL. And I was sitting on the bench and all of a sudden I'm like, man, that's strong. And I turn around and it was the dude that was literally in the first row and he had a joint in his mouth. And there was, you know how they have police officers that line the field on both sides? There's a police officer 5 feet away from him, staring up into the crowd, and nothing was going on. And I was like, man, this really is a unique experience playing in the Black Hole.
Hey, man, it's all good in the Black Hole. All right, so yeah, I mean, and not to get away from the point. So Josh Gordon, again, we're praying for him. hope just for his personal life. Incredible talent. We know that. But addiction is serious, man. And he has 2 friends here at the ThomaHawk Show. All right, so next up, we have a report that several Browns players, notably Jarvis Landry, were yelling, "Come get me," at the Arizona sideline on Sunday. Do you have any reaction to that, Joseph?
My reaction to that is we rarely advocate for players-only meetings. As a matter of fact, it's a great way to fracture the team and have giant fights in the locker room and make sure everybody else gives up on the season. But this might be the rare instance where I would encourage the leaders in the Browns locker room to come together and have a little players-only meeting, if for no other reason to just say, hey, guys, there's 2 games left in the season. We need to make sure that we're not doing anything that can be potentially destructive to each other.
Right.
Because when reports like this get out there, now everybody in that locker room have to answer questions for those guys because of what they said. So Odell and Jarvis supposedly have been saying, "Come get me." And of course, we all know what that implicates. But now the media is going to come into the locker room and ask Joel Bitonio about it. Are you happy here? Do you want to be here? Has Jarvis ever talked to you about not wanting to be here? They're going to talk to Hollywood Higgins. They're going to talk to the coaches. And it just puts all the teammates in a bad spot.
Higgins going to be like, yeah, I'm out of here. I don't know what you're talking about. My shit is packed.
He's like, I cannot wait. But it goes back to the same thing that what happened a couple weeks ago with Baker and how he threw the training staff under the bus. That's so bad because now J.C. Tretter, who's dealing with an ankle injury, has to answer questions all week about, well, what do you think about the training staff? Well, now you have had a bad ankle. Have they ever treated you bad? And he's caught like walking the line between defending his quarterback and his teammate and defending the medical staff. And you don't ever want to have to be caught in between defending sides of your organization. Yeah. And so they need to have a players only meeting and have those captains and leaders stand up and say, guys, 2 weeks left. We can say less. That's more at this point.
But that's not even
let's hold it together. Let's not do anything that's going to be disruptive to each other, to make us look bad, to make me and my brothers have a hard time to finish the season and then do productive things in the next season.
Yeah, I don't know I think it's past the players only meeting status because the captains and leaders are the ones who are doing it. So how are they going to conduct a meeting to tell everybody else what they themselves need to stop doing?
Yeah, no, but that's my point is you get on the same page and let them understand like, hey, we get it. You're very frustrated. Like we're all very frustrated. And you know what? You may want to trade. That's fine. But for the sake of the guys that are still here that you care about, that still want to be here or that are going to be here next year, keep a lid on it for 2 weeks. Anybody can do something for 2 weeks. You can survive training camp for 2 weeks. You can stop yelling, come get me to the Arizona or the other team's sideline or to the media or whatever for 2 weeks. And then you know what? After the season's over, go do ESPN, the magazine interview. Go on the ThomaHawk Show and tell everybody how much you hated it and how everybody stinks. Who cares at that point? But while we're here for these last 2 weeks and we're required to be in the locker room and go to practice and answer to the media for things that you say, please, let's not be destructive. Let's not say things that are incriminating against our coaches, our organization, or our teammates so that we can walk out of this building in 2 weeks and not have a sour taste in our mouth about how we finish the season, especially if Jarvis or Odell or whoever is going to be somewhere else next year. They don't want to have people that are in that locker room that are their friends think about their time in Cleveland negatively.
Right.
Like you and I, we had a lot of freaking losing. But you know what? I think very positively of our time together because for the most part, everybody acted professionally. We respected each other. We treated each other well. And the losing actually brought us together and made us fight harder for each other. Yeah. So let's get together and say, let's fight harder for each other. Whether you like the coaches or whoever, it doesn't matter anymore. Let's finish this strong for each other in this locker room.
Then you know what? Couldn't have said it better.
Probably not going to happen. But if it did, it'd be great.
No way in hell that shit happens. But it was eloquent the way you said it. It was poignant. And I commend you, Joe Thomas. All right, next thing, we got Spygate 2.0. The Patriots were caught illegally taping the Bengals sideline. Why? The hell if I know, Joe, because I don't think you need to tape Bengals signals at this point in time. You actually probably hurt yourself by trying to figure out what they're doing because they don't know what they're doing. Anyway, we talked about it on Sunday. What kind of punishments do you think is going to come down on the Patriots, if any? And how do you think this whole scandal ends?
I think that Bill Belichick needs to be suspended 4 games. I think there needs to be a very, very significant fine, $5 million to the organization.
That
and I
is so
believe that you
significant.
need to take away a draft pick.
What kind? What round? What status of draft pick?
I believe a 2nd and a 3rd round draft pick would be fair.
2nd or 3rd round? Because you said 2nd
and 3rd round.
So that's
But
2 draft picks.
after saying all that, one piece of information that I want to know is that how long has this docu-series on Do Your Job been going on? Because if this was the first time that they were actually filming, it's easy for me to defend them and say, you know what? Nothing nefarious was happening, because there's no way that they would go the whole season and then all of a sudden decide, you know what, we really need to steal the Bengals signals in order for us to have an advantage. But if this has been a docu-series that's been going on the whole season, or maybe multiple seasons, then I think it's clearly that they've been caught red-handed. So I guess I would like to maybe back up my comments about the suspension and the significant punishment until we find out how long this series has been recorded. And if it's only 1 game, then you say, all right, it was a problem. We still have to punish you because of what you did. Even though you may not have known it was a violation at the time, you still broke the rules. It's like, hey, I didn't know that I stole money from the bank, but I did. And I'm sorry, and I have to pay the punishment. But if they did it intentionally, and if it's been going on for weeks, then 4 games is not even close to enough for Belichick. He should just be banned for life, because this is the 2nd time they've done it.
Yeah. Well, they do, it looks like, we pulled up on a series here. It's called the Do Your Job video series, and they kind of profile different staff members. So they have the training staff on there. They have coaches on there. They have kind of everybody just showing, like, you know, they have the video department has it, obviously. So maybe it is like, hey, this was just his feature for this 1 game. And like you said, if that's the case, yeah, you probably didn't need to tape the Bengals. Like, I wouldn't believe that you were there to get signals from them. But if it is like a lifetime story, like, yeah, we've been following this advanced scout for 10 years. And
but even, okay, so if
story.
so if they had the trainers and the strength coaches and all these different guys, and they've been filming the sideline every single week under different guise of, well, we want to see what the perspective is for the chefs on Sunday. And, you know, they watch the game from up in the box. So, yeah, we're going to film the sideline from the box. Like, was this their guise of being able to film the sideline each and every week?
Yeah.
I still want to hear that answer.
Okay, so if that is the case, you think a 4-game suspension for Bill Belichick, $5 million fine to the New England Patriots organization, and the loss of a 2nd and 3rd round pick. That's what Commissioner Thomas is doing.
That's what I would do if this was a reoccurring thing.
Yeah. I would say I would force them to do, you remember the show Wife Swap? Where you swap wives?
One of the greats.
The punishment is quarterback swap. So just like they forced like one of the worst teams in the NFL to do Hard Knocks, they forced them to swap quarterbacks with one of the whoever has the worst record in the NFL, and that's your punishment for a whole season. So you go a whole season with Ryan Finley or you know, Daniel Jones or Jameis Winston. Who else? Ryan Fitzpatrick. You have to do a quarterback swap with Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Dolphins get Tom Brady for next season. You get Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's your punishment.
The problem is Tom Brady's retiring, so they might want Ryan Fitzpatrick next year.
Oh, man. I guess you're right. All right, let me think through this a little bit longer, and we'll pick it back up in the next episode. All right, that does it for Tama Headlines. I think it's time we get our player on here, man, because, you know, Wednesdays are for the players, and we got one of the best players in the NFL and Calais Campbell.
Wednesdays are for the players.
Travis Kelce.
This entire time I thought it was ThomaHawk.
ThomaHawk. Kareem Jackson.
Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Do I believe in ghosts?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Here we go. Saquon. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I declare thumb war.
Do you think, Marv? Let's get it. The ThomaHawk Show.
Now we've got a special guest joining us on the ThomaHawk Show. We got the greatest defensive lineman in NFL history, certainly the greatest defensive lineman I've ever tried to block in my career, Calais Campbell. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good.
So you played against Joe quite a few times, and you pretty much dominated him, right? Is that an accurate statement?
I mean, I don't know if this is like a spoof show. I don't know what's going on right now, man. Joe is a legend, man. First ballot Hall of Famer, you know.
But if I'm looking at the stats, what is the most sacks you had against Joe? Does anybody know that answer? Joe, I'm sure you know it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was one of the guys from the AFC North. It was probably either James Harrison or Terrell Suggs, I would think.
No, I mean specifically when you played against Calais Campbell. How many sacks did he have against you?
Yeah, I played more inside. I played 5, and I probably went against Joe actually in pass rush situations like 3 times total.
Yeah,
realistically,
he's pretty easy to get by. You can tell us here on the show.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know what it was. I remember I was watching some old clips not too long ago, and somebody interviewed me and asked me like how he was, and I was saying like he's like the perfect combination of athleticism and technique, and strong to boot. And everybody knows Joe's one of the best to ever do it. We definitely had we had a couple battles in the run game for sure, but on the pass situations I was mostly in the 3 technique, rushing inside, which is not a bad place to live for a guy like me. But I would have loved to got more opportunities against you, though, Joe.
Yeah, that sounds like a defensive lineman. I'm glad we didn't have more opportunities together. As an offensive lineman, I just wish the crappiest guy gets put over me all game so I can just have a cup of coffee and relax out there while they put the great players like you on the crappy offensive lineman. Let me ask you this. I know that Arizona, when you were there, you played a little bit more out over the tackle, and you have moved around throughout your career. But now that you're in Jacksonville, do you enjoy and do you have any input on like, hey, I've been watching film, this is a guard, he kind of sucks, or this is a tackle, he sucks. I'd really like to be able to get a lot of opportunities to rush over him. Is that something that within your defensive scheme you guys are given the freedom to do?
Yeah, it's kind of one of the things where it depends on the year and the coach. I've had a lot of different coaches over the years, but this year in particular, we'll kind of break down each individual offensive lineman, and I kind of figure out where I feel like my strengths will go and be the most effective. I think it kind of showed in the Tennessee game this year. We had the Thursday night game, and I kind of went over their right guard, and really, I mean, I just knew what I did well. I
beat him like a drum.
It was fun though, but I mean, honestly, it is different though because we move around so much. We have like our system is based off of calls, so I could be lined up, pretty much anywhere from the 1, 3, 5, either left and right, just based off the call. So. Only time I got to really line up where I want to was on third down, third and long, so we're not blitzing. So
when you got to Jacksonville, and I remember when you were, actually going through like the free agent part, and right after, I think you might have signed with Jacksonville. We actually were in LA. This is years and years ago now, out in Burbank on the Warner Brother lot. But when you got to Jacksonville, and I remember when you first signed, everyone was like, "Oh man, he's tripping, leaving Arizona, going to Jacksonville. You betting yourself with it. You got an incredible deal." But you really changed the culture of not just the locker room, that defense specifically, which became one of the best defenses in sports. And now fast forward a couple years, like there's people that, obviously Jalen Ramsey being gone. What is the feel now for you in that locker room? And as one of those leaders of that team, like, what is your message to the guys even still at the end of a season now where you're, not preparing to go to the playoffs?
Yeah, my biggest thing now is just trying to help the young guys build a culture. On our defense, we had 2017 when we were one of the best defenses, really in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
Our defense was spectacular in my opinion, but on that defense, I think we only had 4 guys this last week that started this last game that started on that defense, so we lost a lot of guys. Literally, we got a lot younger. And it's a lot of talent still on our defense, but guys are going through the growing pains. And so my biggest thing as an older vet is just to kind of show them the winning culture, what it takes, and trying to just establish that consistency that you need, on a daily basis of the preparation, the energy you have to bring to work, And so, even though we went on a pretty bad losing streak for a while there, it felt good this last week getting this W. Especially in a hostile environment. We were going in the last game in the black hole, and that was pretty exciting, game. But you could see the energy in practice. The guys were starting to kind of believe, young guys trying to build their confidence, and we played pretty good, and so hopefully we keep that going, finish this year strong, win these last 2, and build on that going forward. And we'll get some guys back next year that are healthy because we lost some guys to injury too. So it's gonna be interesting, But my biggest thing is trying to teach these guys, like, just no matter what, build a culture that you can win with. There's a lot of core guys that are going to be part of the Jacksonville Jaguars for a long time to come. And I'm trying to just establish in them that culture that you need to create a winning environment.
One of those young guys that you've been taking under your wing is first-round pick out of Florida, Taven Bryan. What have you seen out of him this year, and what kind of an NFL career do you think he'll have?
Yeah, he's grown a lot. He's one of those guys that's so freakishly athletic and gifted, but he's never had to be like a technician before. He's just beat people off of pure athleticism, and so – just working with him on developing a move, developing a plan, really just you have to kind of get him out of his own way because he's so gifted that it kind of made him like relax, just nonchalant, and he can still play well even in the NFL. He's putting, just bull rushing guards on top of quarterbacks, and he can, flip his hips and turn the corner when he wants to. But my mind, just with me, my biggest goal is to try to just get him to understand, to develop a game plan. Just have begin the week with watching tape and figuring out what you can do to beat the guy in front of you, and then actually work it throughout the week and then try to bring it to the game, But when you're young, you have to just establish the basic how to watch tape, So we work a lot though, and you can see he's been growing fast. He's not going to be a guy who gets a lot of flashy numbers, but he's going to wreak a lot of havoc in backfields consistently. And as he continues to get better, he'll start put up those numbers. But he's kind of a Justice Smith kind of guy, just freakishly strong, super athletic, and guys around him are going to make all the plays by him, the way he puts pressure.
You mentioned that you guys got off the schneid with a big victory in Oakland, the last home game for the Oakland Raiders. What was the atmosphere like in the Black Hole for their last game in Oakland Coliseum? I got to imagine that things were pretty crazy, especially the way that things finished.
Yeah, I would say that was probably one of the most exciting games I've been a part of.
Really?
Just with the energy in the crowd. It was kind of like a playoff atmosphere with the energy in the crowd. Just knowing that, I knew there was going to be a lot of emotion with the fans knowing it's the last game. Mm-hmm. But just given the way the season's been going, I wasn't sure how intense they would be into it, but I was, pleasantly surprised. The fans were intense. The energy was going the whole time. There's a lot of trash talking, which, when you play the Black Hole, there's always some trash talking. But, and then the way the game ended, it was definitely exciting. So it was a nail biter the whole time. It was definitely fun to be a part of.
I always loved playing in the Black Hole because the crowd was just so unique and so rabid. There was some crazy stuff we'd see with the guy that had like the spiky shoulder pads, and when we'd warm up in the corner of the end zone, they'd throw stuff at us, and they would be just barking all sorts of terrible things. They would try to shank our coaches as we ran into the locker room.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Did you see anything? Did you see anything crazy from last weekend out of that Black Hole?
Oh yeah, pretty much everything you just said was definitely still part of it. We definitely had stuff thrown on the field. They're talking trash. I think we had good security, so nobody got shanked, but they made sure nobody rushed the field. A lot of middle fingers, though.
A lot of middle fingers. I love that. Hey, so we hear so much about Minshew, right? And there's like all these times where quarterbacks come, and like I remember with Kyle Allen early in the season, there was a lot of conversation around him, and they have their moments. And Minshew Mania kind of took over the whole globe, right? So you're in that locker room. Is Minshew the real deal?
He's a big personality, man. He's got a swagger to him that you can't help but appreciate. He's one of those guys, when you walk into the room, he just commands attention. First of all, his style. He dresses very uniquely,
okay.
But he makes it look so cool.
Right.
And he has the mean mustache and just the big personality, just super confident, whole lot of swagger, man. He's a guy you see him out there and the way he works and the way he prepares, you like the way he works as a football player, but then you just kind of see like he does some stuff that's unorthodox that you shouldn't do, but he makes it look good, and so you can't help but to respect it.
All right, so I got a question. So terrorists come and kidnap you, and they're holding you hostage, and they have a shank. He's an Oakland Raiders fan. He has a shank to your neck, and he said if you get one quarterback that gets to throw the football, the game the quarterbacks play where they throw the football into a bin on the field, or even like do the crossbar play. And you have either Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, or Minshew Mania. You get to pick one to throw the football to save your life from the Raiders fan who's a terrorist who has a shank to your throat. Which quarterback are you picking?
I can't add in nobody else because that's nothing wrong with them. But I'm saying, though, my man Patrick Peterson, when I was in Arizona, used to go to do the quarterback drills every week and do the same quarterback drill every week in Arizona. And my man Patrick Peterson, the All-Pro DB.
Yep.
I think he's been 7, 8 All-Pro or whatever his numbers are. He's a ridiculous stud.
Right.
But as a quarterback, though, my man puts that ball in the money all the time. So if I had to pick one person to save my life, I'll pick Patrick Peterson.
Okay, using a phone in. All right. Well, you can't do that. You got to pick one of the three. All right. This is my game. Calais, are you pick one of the 3 quarterbacks? Who is saving your life?
I watched it this year more often than not. I didn't really watch it the years past, so I don't know how accurate Blake was in that game. But I know that Foles and Mitchell trade a lot. They both put it in the bucket. They both have good accuracy in that, so I really couldn't be wrong.
Okay.
Corner.
All right, so Blake's eliminated. Now you're down to 2. Foles or Minshew? Who's saving your life, man? You think Raiders fans are this patient?
Good at it. I put my faith in both of them.
All right, you're dead. You just got shanked in front of everybody, Calais. You're dead. All right, it's just that's what happened. You felt the game. Jared, your brother is somewhere like, nah, man, that's my brother. You got some funny brothers, man. Who is the funniest person in your family? Who's funnier, you or Jared?
My mom. My mom is the funniest person in my family by far.
That's where the comedy comes from.
Oh yeah, my mom is hilarious.
Okay, Mama Campbell is the funny one. You do a lot of stuff
Jared
in the media.
actually says he should get her on stage.
Really?
Yeah, Jared says he should get her on stage. He's trying to get her to do a TV show too. I'm like, I don't know about what my mom, out there in the public like that. So we'll
I
see.
feel you, man. I feel you. Unless it's a chunky soup commercial or something. All right. So
simple.
You do media as well. You host a show. I've seen so many things. You create shows, pilots. You host them. Like super multi-talented. Do you see yourself going heavy into media when you're done in 20 years?
20 years. It's a few years. Definitely not anytime soon. But I want to get in the media world. I don't know. There's a lot of different opportunities and things I want to do and see what I'm good at. But yeah, for sure, no doubt, man. Hopefully, maybe we could do something together.
Hey, now you're talking my language, man.
Yeah, hang on a second, guys. I'm still here. What Hawk is trying to say is, should he kill you now so that you don't take his job at the NFL Network in the media world when you retire?
Let me know, because I'm actually
let me live, man.
All right.
I still got a couple good years of football left in me.
Okay, good. So you're still gonna be on the field. All right. So we play a catchphrase game every week on the ThomaHawk Show, right? So what the catchphrase game is, our fans pick a phrase, they vote on a phrase that me and Joe have to do in our broadcast for the week, right? We're both at NFL Network, so we do shows all week. Joe does it on like the Thursday Night Football studio show, and I'll do it during the week on Total Access or something. Since you are a player, but you're also a quasi-media member because you are going to be a media superstar, do you want to get involved in the catchphrase game? All you have to do is use the saying, whatever the catchphrase is, in one of your interviews. Can we get a commitment from you? This will be our first player participant in the catchphrase game.
So I'm getting interviewed later this week. I got to throw the catchphrase in there.
You got to throw the catchphrase game in. You got to throw the catchphrase in there. Very simple game.
Pass or fail game.
All right.
Just like the Super Troopers.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So what do we have? We haven't picked the catchphrase yet. We're doing it later in the show. But I will tell you right now, the leading candidate for the catchphrase game is don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. So what's going to happen is we were going to make the determination. We're going to get the final tally by the end of this show. We are going to send it to you via social media, and we are going to be on the lookout for you dropping the ThomaHawk catchphrase game this week.
All right, let's make it happen, man. I'm down.
All right, my God, man. Best of luck the rest of the season. Man, Calais Campbell, appreciate you joining us, baby.
Thanks a lot, Calais.
I appreciate you guys having me. Take it easy.
All right, that was our guy, Calais Campbell. I kept calling him Calais and Calais. I'm not going to lie. I'm not exactly sure because I hear it both so many times. But when he was going through his free agency like years ago, he filmed his entire free agency. Like, so talking to, the Arizona Cardinals, talking to new teams, what teams he was going to. And this is before anybody kind of did that. I want to say J.J. Redick might have did it maybe after him. But you could hear basically the Arizona Cardinals tell him like, yo, we think it's a wrap. Like, we think you're done. And here he is 3 or 4 years later, and he's playing just as good as he ever has and literally turned that entire Jaguars defense around. So shout out to Campbell, man, for joining us here on the ThomaHawk Show. We have another guest on the ThomaHawk line. Something everybody's been looking forward to. The winner of our Waterboys contest, Johnny Rogers, is joining us here on the show. This show is officially known as the ThomaJohnny Show. Thoma Rogers Show or ThomaJohnny Show? I feel like Johnny Manziel would have something to say about that. Because I feel like we had an episode where it was basically the ThomaJohnny Show. But that doesn't matter. Let's give him a call.
Hello?
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 Hello. You've reached
The ThomaHawk line.
Johnny, what's up, man? Welcome to the ThomaHawk Show. This is Andrew Hawkins, joined by my co-host, humblest of all of the co-hosts, Joe Thomas. How you doing today?
Hey, Joe Hawk, I'm doing great.
Yeah, man.
Beautiful.
You know what? You won the Waterboy contest, and we couldn't be more excited to get you on here to join as a third co-host of the ThomaHawk Show. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Johnny.
Lifelong Browns fan. I now live in Virginia. Work for a power utility. Watch the Browns every weekend. Lived in Pittsburgh for a couple of years. That was rough. Literally the hardest place to wear your colors.
So we got to ask, being the ThomaHawk Show, being that you're a Browns fan, and, we're Browns fans too, what's been your perspective on the Browns season in 2019?
And about sums it up.
That's it.
Disappointing. A little bit unsurprising. There was a lot of volatility coming into the season. We weren't sure how things were going to play out. And sadly, it seems like a lot of it's played out in the worst possible way.
So what if they said, listen, Johnny, we heard you on the ThomaJohnnyHawk Show and you were magnificent. And we, the Cleveland Browns, we want you to be the president of operations. And it's up to you to fix this organization. What are the first 3 moves you make, Johnny?
Wow, they are really scraping the bottom of the barrel, aren't they?
That's what we're known for.
Yeah, I think at this point, there's got to be a change in the coaching staff. I don't know if it's Freddie, if it's the offensive coordinator. Something looks wrong with Baker. And it's everything. It's from, like, the game Sunday, what I noticed was Baker would make a perfect throw, wide receiver would drop it. Wide receiver would be wide open, and Baker overthrows the wide receiver. And it's frustrating to see that. And it seems like he's regressed in a way that I did not expect this year.
So how do you fix it?
So first off, you're going to have to get Baker help. I think it's either a new quarterback.
Get Baker help from who? Receiver?
I think he's got 2 of the most talented wide receivers in the league right now.
So what is it, running back?
That means no, he's got the best running back in the league too.
So where's the help coming from, Johnny? Where are we getting him the help at, man? I'm your assistant GM if you haven't noticed. I asked a tough question.
I can tell. You are. It's got to be. He needs more help out of the O-line. They've been doing a really good job, it seems to me, in the run plays. Pass protection just hasn't been there. And I think it's coaching and technique.
Okay.
It's trust. It seems like they're not all on the same page. And again, a lot of that comes back to coaching. And I don't want to be one of the guys calling for Freddie's head, because I hate doing that after a year.
Right.
But things just haven't seemed right this year.
All right, since you're trying to fire everybody's coach right now, let's talk about firing podcast hosts. Since there's only room for 2 podcast hosts, of course, you can't have the 3 of us, so somebody's got a gun to your head. Are you going to fire Hawk, or are you going to fire me and put yourself in our shoes?
Are you really going to put me on the spot like that? Wow.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hard-hitting
am I allowed to
questions.
choose myself?
Yes, that's fine. That's perfectly okay with us.
Well, I agree with Hawk when he said a month ago, I just hate the sound of my own voice. So if I had to listen to my own podcast, I'd go nuts.
Go nuts. So you're going to off yourself just to keep the ThomaHawk Show intact.
He fits in well in the ThomaHawk Show. He's got a little imposter syndrome going on as well. We appreciate that. And the big media stars like Johnny Rogers.
Absolutely. And then the detail Joe didn't give you, it was actually me with the gun to your head. So if you would have said me, it would have cost you anyway. And there still would have been only 2 of us. All right. So be honest with us.
I knew there was a trick there.
Be honest with us. How much money did you give to the Waterboys donation? No judgment zone.
It was the, what was it, 1673?
1673.
Or did I just keep?
So $16,730,000.
Yeah,
that was a very generous donation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate that, man.
How else was I going to
Waterboys
on the ThomaHawk
appreciates
Show?
that.
Exactly. Well, we were obviously going to go to the highest bidder. We seen the 16 M's come through, and we're like, wow, we got to get this guy on, but not for more than 10 minutes. Let's not be ridiculous. So we brought you on here. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
We couldn't be more excited. Do you have any questions for us, Johnny?
Oh, Jesus. I did, and I did not bring them up with me. What is it, honestly, surprisingly, what is it like running a podcast? What does it hear that surprised you? Because I've heard you guys in enough interviews to know from the football side, but it's now the media side. What is it that has surprised you the most? Now that you are exalted members of the media.
I would say the most surprising thing for me is the number of people that have to work behind the scenes to record a phone call between me and Hawk. Because basically what this is me and Hawk calling each other on Sunday and Tuesday afternoon and talking. And there's like 735 people that work behind the scenes putting this all together to try to make us sound and look good on Sundays.
Right.
And even with that huge team of people, we sometimes sound like idiots.
Manage to F it up.
And so that's surprising to me.
It's sometimes we surprise each other with how terrible we truly are. My biggest surprise was how much people, like big names in the media and as well as coaches and players, give a damn about what we say, because it's just us. We just say whatever to each other because we're friends. And then I'll run into people that we have talked about on the show and they'll be pissed off about it. And it's like, why do you care? Because I didn't care when I said it. Or you could talk about me and I wouldn't care. So that part was a little surprising to me, Johnny.
That makes sense. Now, what I like listening to you guys is it's fun getting players' perspective on all of this. That's one of the things I most appreciate about you guys is seeing something. That's why Rome was one of my favorite broadcasters. If you get this guy who's just recently in the game, right, I can get a better feel of what's going on. Because I didn't play football. I was a band nerd.
Right. I love that. Tell me this, band nerd. What was your favorite part of the ThomaHawk Show?
It's got to be the catchphrase game. That is the greatest inside joke right now.
You know what, Johnny? You deserve a round of applause, and you got it, because that is also our favorite part of, like, not even kidding. In the 3 seasons, 2 years that we've done this show, the ThomaHawk catchphrase game has by far been our favorite part of it. So we love that you love it, and we love that the Thoma flock also enjoys us making buffoons of ourselves on national television.
It's also just funny watching your co-host just die laughing every time.
Right, ruining sports media for everybody. That's our favorite part of the entire podcast.
You call it ruining, I call it enhancing.
There it is. I love it. This is a podcast and media enhancing podcast. This episode will forever be known as the ThomaJohnnyHawk Show. And we appreciate you for your donation to the Waterboys contest. We appreciate you for listening, and we wouldn't be able to have this without you, Johnny. So we appreciate you joining on, and Joe Hawk yourself, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Hawk, you guys, Joe Hawk yourself as well.
We will.
Currently.
All right, thanks, guys.
Take care, boss.
Thanks, man.
You too, brother.
All right, before we wrap, the votes are in, Joe. We've selected a catchphrase that you have to say during your color commentary of the Texans and the Buccaneers on national television. Your first appearance as a color commentator, your debut, the precursor to you being selected as the color guy for Monday Night Football. Not to be confused with Booger. It's a different kind of colored guy. All right? I can say that, Joe. You can't. The catchphrase is, don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. Round of applause. Are you nervous? I feel like this is a nervous week for you for the ThomaHawk catchphrase game.
You know, it's been a very roller coaster week for my emotions. I'm in shambles right now. I've gone through 3 T-shirts already, sweat right through them. I was feeling nervous when I first got selected for this game, but then I started preparing and I felt better. But then this catchphrase was announced, and now I'm nervous again because I don't know how you can say this on national television in a serious role as a color commentator, doing the pregame and the postgame. That's a clown show. That's a bunch of clowns saying whatever they want. This is a serious show here. The good news is it's in Florida, and there's a lot of sweaty stuff in Florida.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that maybe there's an angle that I can work it in there, but I'm not exactly sure where.
Oh, I love it. You got to figure. I can give you some pointers here. Now, first off, I appreciate your commitment, right? Because it's easy to do the catchphrase game for me when on shows that I feel like nobody's actually watching, right? Or like for you, you're like, this is pregame. I just go in there and say whatever. Everyone laughs. It's awesome. Get a lot of engagement out of it on social media. But there's no point of doing it if when the stakes are high, just like an astronaut eating a tomahawk.
Never been higher. If
you won't actually commit to the catchphrase, man, because with that kind of commitment, Joe, as you know, can't be measured with an abacus. So here's my suggestion to you. They're going to come in. Somebody's going to bring up the Texans mindset because they're trying to get into the playoffs. Had a big win last week against Nashville. Buccaneers are trying to figure out if Jameis Winston is the future, and you just got to talk about the Texans. You got to say, listen, this is a fine-tuned week for you. You should win this football game if you want to go the distance that you want to go to in the AFC playoffs. You can't sweat the petty stuff, and you definitely don't pet the sweaty stuff. You come in here, you focus in, and you do what you have to do to build your team's momentum going into the games that count in the postseason. Boom.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah, and that's just one variation. So just let that marinate a little bit. We'll be watching. We'll be excited. I'm DVRing that game, so we will have premium footage of you dropping the catchphrase game. The first appearance in a color commentary, man. I know the ThomaHawk. We're all watching.
What do we think the odds are that I drop this catchphrase and immediately NFL security comes into the booth and they escort me out of the booth, just like NFL security did to that Patriots videographer that was doing the supposed documentary, and they put me in handcuffs and take me away from the NFL game forever?
Oh, man. I think the opposite will happen. I think ESPN will call right to the NFL and say, hey, we want the negotiation. We got to have them. What is the buyout?
We got one more Monday night. We got to have him. We can't wait till next year.
We can't wait. We need this guy now. How quick can we get him out of that booth and on a plane to the final Monday Night Football game? That's what my prediction is, Joe.
I just want to go in the Booger Mobile just one time. I just want him to bring back the Booger Mobile. I want Booger in the box and me in his mobile on the sideline.
You want to take over?
That's my dream in life.
Yeah.
That's my Make-A-Wish dream.
I love it. I love it. All right, so don't sweat the petty stuff. Don't pet the sweaty stuff. Simple as that. That's the ThomaHawk catchphrase for the week, and we couldn't be more excited. All right, that does it for this episode of the ThomaHawk Show. Joe, what are your final thoughts, brother?
Final thoughts are, I just received, in the middle of recording this podcast, my absolutely fantastic storyboard, which for those of you that haven't been in the media world like Andrew Hawkins has, it is a, 24 by 18 sheet of paper.
It looks like
it's like those play sheets. It looks like those play sheets that the coaches hold over their mouths like they're afraid of lip readers reading their lips and telling the plays.
Right.
And
as
it's
if they
got
that, but go ahead.
Yeah. It's got like the full roster for both teams, and it's got all the statistics for all the players. And then it's got these little spaces on there that you can add in little tidbits on all the guys. And for all the guys that do the color and the play-by-play, they get these storyboards made for them by certain guys. I don't even know who the people are, but I just got mine today in the middle of recording this. And the most important note that's going to go on here is don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. I'm writing that in a extra magnum large Sharpie right over the top of all of these names, because nothing matters until I get that catchphrase in the game.
All right. For all you magnum large lovers, we'll be back on Sunday. Calais Campbell, take us out.
Joe, yourself, baby. Let's go.